PMDG 737-800 is one of the best planes in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but how do you start it up from cold and dark the right way to get you going if you really don't care about necessarily the most realistic approach? Today, I've got a look at what you need to know to get the 737-800 from cold and dark to ready to fly. Here we go. So to get started, your plane is going to need power. As you can see, everything is off. This is the cold and dark, so this is what it should look like when it's all off. And to get power, you're going to have to go up to the upper console over here. Now, I've got the camera views already set up for this particular aircraft, so you don't have camera views. You're going to have to do that on your own. It's a whole different topic, so I'm going to assume that you can navigate around here and do that. So first thing is going to be, you can turn the battery on. So battery is this little switch over here. And you can see here now all of a sudden that's going on. This is just the battery. You're going to need more than that. You're also going to need ground power. Now we can see out here that there is no ground power truck. So if we wanted to turn the ground power on, well, there's no ground power to actually turn on. So to do that, we're going to go downstairs to the FMC. And not only will we do a lot of other things in here, this is really your hub for activities. There's no EFB, there's no tablet for this aircraft. So you're going to need to go through here to do a lot of the functions, right? So we're going to FS Actions. We're going to go to Ground Services. And GPU cart is the ground power type we want. And we're going to request it. So it's going to say connecting. And as if by magic, the ground cart is being hooked up. As you can see, it is now hooked up to the airplane. And going back inside, it still says connecting. We'll wait for it to be connected. And we should be good to go there. So now it's powered on. So now if we go up to the top over here, we're going to notice that the ground power is now available for you to use. And it's right down there. You'll see ground power available. So just hit down, and there you go. So now we have ground power. So we're going to mark it around a battery. We have the battery on. So we are good when it comes to the basics there. At least we have power. Next thing we're going to do is just flip this emergency light switch down. It's going to arm them. You could arm them and then put the switch down. It's the exact same thing. And we're also going to do something very important, which is to get the IRS to nav. So these are the IRS. This is how you get basically your autopilot to be able to know where your plane is, where you want to go, all that stuff. So you're going to switch it over using your mouse wheel to nav. That's 2 clicks over. 1, 2. To nav. And we are good there. And going back down here, we see the electric hydro pumps to go to on. They're actually on by default, so we're good there on that. So we've got that on. Everything else is good here. Window heat is probably the only other thing you could do right now. Turn those on just to, and there. We'll leave the probe heat on. We'll turn these on after engine start, so we're good to there. All right, so essentially, we're good for right now. There's plenty more to do. Don't worry, we'll get to this in a little bit. We're going to go back down to the flight computer, the FMC, and this is where we're going to do a lot of the important things here. So you can already see it wants to enter IRS position. Don't worry about this. We're going to get one thing at a time, right? So let's what I like to do first is actually get the plane set up from a weight and balance standpoint. I'm going to have assumed that you have set this up already on like SimBrief. By far, this is so much easier if you use a flight plan through SimBrief, so you have all your numbers ready. If you don't, it can be kind of an issue, but we'll go to that in just a little bit. So let's go to return, and we're going to go to our fuel. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to load up the fuel, we're going to set the payload, and then we'll actually put in all the other important information here. So for the fuel today, this is your options that you have. You can set it full, you can set it 2/3, you can set it 1/3. It's really up to you, or you can actually set a specific level, putting in the numbers. So according to SimBrief, we're going to need 13,176 pounds of fuel. By the way, we're doing a flight here from Tampa to New Haven, Connecticut in Yavello Airlines. So we're making these numbers up. This flight up. This is a real world flight, but SimBrief developed these numbers here. So 13,176. Put it right in there. Boom. It does that for you. You're good to go there. Turn. Payload for today. We're in economy mode. Obviously, this is a Velo. There's not many people that are on this airplane. There's no first class or anything like that. Obviously, you could change all that to have that information in there should you want it. Looks like we have 143 passengers for today. Economy, so we'll put that in there. As you can see, the numbers are changing based on that. Now, it's important to note when you're putting these numbers in here, these actually go automatically. You can see when we put 13.176, zoom out a little bit, you will see that the fuel's already set to 13.2. So it loads it in here. If you want to load it in more realistically, you can call the fuel truck. There's other ways to do that. But again, we're trying to be more practical with what we're doing here. So we've got the fuel. We've got the payload in here. Go back to the main menu. Go to FMC. So nav data out of data, where you can clear that out, depending on that. Well, that's a whole different issue altogether. You're going to go to pause init, and you're going to grab this number here. And actually, for that, you're going to type in the reference airport. So in this case, we are in Tampa, ATPA. The gate is unnecessary for you to do. And you can see here, this is the GPS for the airport. This is the GPS for, I assume, where we are at the gate currently. I just grabbed that one, set that in there, and you're good to go. Okay, so now we're going to go to route. We're going to click on route, and our origin airport. It's already put it in the scratch pad because we put that in there earlier. So we're going from Tampa, and we are going to New Haven, Connecticut. Put that in there. Flight number today is VXP 503. This actually isn't necessary to do these kinds of things, but you can do that. Flight plan request. If you have a saved file, you can do that. We do not on this one, so we're just going to go to next. And you can see here that we have a route, but there's nothing actually in here. So we're good to go on this. So now let's do the departures and arrivals. We're clicking on departure. We are departing Tampa. So departing Tampa. And we're going to take 01 left. And it looks like we have the BIPO 1 out of here and the CamJo transition. Again, this information that we're getting is from the SimBrief flight plan that's been generated for us. Next thing we're going to do is actually put in the flight plan itself. To do that, we're going to go to the legs page. Actually, we're going to go to the route page, excuse me. And we're going to click on the next page. So we have here the departure. This was already put in here. We put that in here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the airways. And this is the flight plan. Again, SimBrief gave me this information. So the airways go on the left side, Q109. And that terminates at Pandy, Pandy. You can hit execute and it'll save it. You don't have to, just something you do. If you're doing a direct, there's no airway, then you just put it on the right side. So B, like Bartle is our next one. BARTL. And there you go, it has a direct. You don't need to put direct in here. Just put it in the airway on the, or the fix on the left, right hand side. Next one, J121. Over to Briggs, BRIGS, Q439, to Sardi, SARDI. I'll execute that. I always like to hit execute just to save them. That way, you screw something up, you can always go back and undo it. And we have one more, which is a airway. The 139 to Riced. RICE. Cool. And then we'll do the arrival. So back to the departure arrival page. New Haven, arrival. We're taking runway 2. And for this particular one, there is no star being used. If you're using a star, you can put it in here. Just for the purposes of this, I'll show you what it is. You could hit the Bridgeport 1, Albany transition. I mean, this is terrible. We wouldn't do this. But you would put it in here and hit execute, and it'll put all in there. So now if you go to your legs page, now you will see every single fix that has been brought in. And again, these are from the airways and different information there. And you can see right there, the Rice is our last waypoint from before the arrival, and then the arrival in here is discontinuity. The discontinuities are interesting because it depends on the flight plan whether or not you should remove them or not. In a lot of cases, if you're going from your main part of your flight to your arrival, it's okay to have to remove the discontinuity. In this case, you should say clear. Actually, in this one, Albany, move it up, execute. But in other cases, you actually want to leave. So like this one, there's discontinuity between the last point in the arrival and the ILS. And here you actually want to leave this in here because air traffic control may vector you in there. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, we've got that going. So we've got the flight plan now in here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the information about the aircraft. So to get the information, the nice thing is you actually hit perf init request. And once it does that, it should bring in the information here. The gray text indicates that we're good to go there, so we'll request it. And when it's ready, you're going to see the load button here. Hit load, and boom, we've got it all in there. So it's brought this all in. It's got the information in there, and we are good to go with a lot of this information. Not done yet, but it does help quite a bit. And if that all looks good to you, you can modify these numbers as you see fit, but we're going to hit execute. All right, next one is the N1 limit. So you're going to hit that button here. This is your takeoff configuration. Again, depending on the calculator that you're using, there isn't a right or wrong answer for this one, but you could do different things. So you could do climb 2 and 30. And you could do a D rate if you'd like to. Again, it really depends on how you want to do these things. It depends on how much realism, but we don't have time to go over all that other information about this. Just understand that you can change these numbers as you see fit. So we'll do, for funsies, TO1, climb 2, and then let's go to the takeoff page. So for departure, flaps 5 is pretty standard, so we're going to hit flaps 5 on that. And center of gravity should be able to be brought in. You just click on the left side to see the number appears in the scratch pad. Put that in there, and you're good to go. Now, because we've done all the other steps, the plane has actually calculated the takeoff speeds for us. So all we have to do is just click to the right of it, 137, 138, and 147. It's just that easy. Now, if you were to go back and change the weights or the fuel or anything else related to the configuration of the plane, you may need to come back over here and change these numbers again. And then we'll go to the next page, and you can change if it is dry or wet, depending on the conditions outside. You can put in the runway slope as well. This is up to you if you'd like to do these kinds of things. It's not totally necessary. I would say the wet and the dry is kind of important, and obviously it is a bright sunny day here in Tampa, so we're going to just leave it as dry. All right, that's good. Let's go back to the init ref page. All the numbers are good over here. All right, that looks good. Let's go back up, and I like to now set up the MCP over here. So this is basically where you can start setting some of the settings now for your plane. You're not ready to go yet, but you'd like to get more things set up. First thing is a really good idea, set the barometer, the altimeter for what you're going to do there. So you've got inches or hectopascals, and you can adjust the numbers, and it adjusts based on the dial over here. And depending on what you want to use, you have different options there. So just a amount of clicking and moving around. You can see in a couple different locations the numbers here. We've got hectopascal 1012. We'll switch it back to, we're in the US. Currently it is 3004, so we're good there. You can see that setting there. Moving over to the MCP. I guess I don't have that particular setup there. We're just now going to set up some of our settings for departure here. Again, depending if you're flying on air traffic control or on your own, these settings can vary quite a bit. It was a good idea to set your runway heading for your departure. So, and again, charts will have this information for you. So if we're going on one, we'll put this at 10. You can always also set it when you're actually on the runway, but that requires remembering. It's a good idea to do that ahead of time. We're going to do our cruising out. Again, if you're out, air traffic control gives it to you. Sometimes you get an altitude. So in Tampa, we'll be getting, let's say, 4,000 on departure. This can always change later on. Okay, so we've got that in here. We're now ready to turn the aircraft's power on so we can disconnect the ground power. First thing we're going to do is go up to the top over here, back up to the upper panel, and we've got all that good to go. So now we're going to start setting things here, starting with the fuel pumps on. So fuel pump's on. We're going to set the altitude. So the altitude, again, was, for whatever your flight is going to be, I think it was 380. Landing altitude, you'll put that in later in the flight, usually closer to your landing, knowing which runway you're going to come in on, a particular setting there. Packs should be off by default. Looks like they are. Yep, packs 1, packs 2, so they're off. We're good there. We're going to set APU bleed to on. And we're going to turn the APU on. So you can see right down here, we're going to use the mouse wheel to go down to start. It's going to pop back up to on. And what we're waiting for is the EGT to rise, which is this dial right there. It will slowly rise. So we're going to wait for that to come on. Essentially what we're waiting for is the APU gen off bus light to turn on before we turn the APU on. And there it goes. And as you can see, the gen bus off is now on. So now we can turn 1, 2. And now we can turn off the ground power. And we're good to go. So let's get rid of the ground power cart. We're going to go back downstairs. And we're going to go back to the main menu. FS Actions. Ground Services. We're going to release the ground power. So it's going to disconnect. And you'll know this will work, obviously, if your APU on that nothing turns off. If you were to disconnect the ground power too early, well, then your plane's pretty much going to turn off or be on battery. You'll get a lot of weird noise and whatnot going forward. All right, the engine started over here. So to start the engines, now that you've got all that going on, we've set everything up to this point. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do them one at a time. And we're going to start off with engine 1. And we're going to start from engine start to GRD. So that's the left side over there. And what you're looking for here is the number over here to start reaching about 25%. So when N2 starts reading 25. If you don't do this next step, the engines don't really turn on. They just kind of spool up, if you will. It's a 25, 23, 24, 25. We're going to hit the little throttle over here, bring number 1 up. And that will start up 1. And you can see engine 1 is starting to spool up there. And you'll see the N1 rising and this number here. So again, you can wait for the engine 1 rather, to turn on before you're starting engine 2. You could do a single engine taxi, whichever one you want to do. Looks like we've got a good start on engine 1. So I'm going to, for the purposes of this video, we're just going to keep this going here. And we're going to switch this to GRD as well. Again, now we're waiting for this number to go up to 25% for the N2. Boop, boop. And once this number reaches 25, 3, 24, it is, we're also going to give it the condition level to idle. There we go. And it looks like we've got a good engine start on engine 2 as well. You can see both engines are on. Good there. Cool. Once you've got a good engine start, you can go up to the top. And you can see over here, it's already popped over to off. But for takeoff and landing, you can set it to continuous. Wait for engine 2 to kick over. Before we do that, obviously, we'll just leave it on its own. There it goes. Continuous. Good. Packs to auto. The passengers probably need some oxygen in the back. Isolation valve and pressurization selectors to auto. So there's the isolation valve. And the good there. We've got this circulating fan. It's already set to auto. So we're good there. We can also now turn off the APU because now we're on engine power. So you don't need the APU anymore. So first thing we're going to do is turn the bleed off for the APU. And then we're going to, oh, we forgot to also, before we do that, we put to Gen 1. Gen 1, Gen 2. Basically, that means now we're on engine power. I know somebody was already typing in the comments. And then once you're on engine power, you're good to go. You can just hit the off button, and that will kill the APU. And everything right, yes, we still have power to the airplane, and we're good to go over there. And before we do, a couple more things left to do. Electric hydro pumps to on. Probe heat on. Yaw damper to on. And there you go. We are essentially ready to go. We've got the plane's ready to go. You can now push back from the gate and do your thing. Start getting going to on your way. So there you go. There is a look at how to start up the PMDG 737-800. Again, this process is pretty much the same for the 600 and 700 variants, maybe even the 900, and play with them, but this is pretty much the go-to for this. It's pretty easy once you know the steps. There's more that you can do. I'll be very clear about that. There are plenty more steps that you can do to get this more accurate, more realistic in terms of the settings, But what I've shown you today is essentially the basics, the minimums that you need to truly get the plane going and on your way. And as you can see here, this pushback cart is interestingly melding with the airplane. Never mind that. That has nothing to do with anything. Pay no attention to the thing. By the way, we still have chocks on. Someone's probably already typing in the comments below. So to get rid of that, we'll just show that there. Remove the chocks. There you go. Now I can actually get pushback from the aircraft. So again, really the FMC and those FS actions, that's really where you're going to be living when it comes to getting your pushback and doing all those kinds of things within the airplane. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way we'll let you know we have a brand new video to share. Hope you found it helpful. Have a great day and enjoy. Happy flying.